Hello, risers, and welcome to another episode of Rising with Christian. I am so blessed that you all are deciding to rise with us today, this evening, in the nighttime, in the morning, whenever you're watching and listening to this. But I'm super excited to have our guest here with us today, none other than a friend and a sister. Her name is Crystal Smitherman, and she's just simply amazing. She went to Hampton University and she got her degree in biology. She also graduated from the University of Alabama Law School. You said it's Cumberland?
Oh, well, I started off at Cumberland, and then I ended up graduating at University of Alabama School of Law.
There we go. There we go. There we go. You're just so gifted and so smart. She owns her own practice. She's also a part of Birmingham City Council, and I just really am honored to have her as we talk about leading beyond boundaries. Leading beyond boundaries. So again, welcome, Crystal.
Thank you, Christian. I'm excited to be on.
Yes, yes. So, I know your story, and so do so many people in the Birmingham area, but there's people who are watching and listening from all over. So, just walk me through before you began to become this great leader of Birmingham. Walk me through what life was like before that role.
Yeah, so life was pretty simple. At the time, I was really deciding about what direction my life would go in because usually your 3L year, your last year, you start applying for which bar you're going to take, what career you want to do. You start applying for jobs. And so I come from a family of politics, and we kind of have been in the background a little bit more when my mom became judge. And so I think this was something that was always my journey. I just didn't know that that was going to be part of the journey. And, Christian, I was trying to figure out why, like, ironically, I applied for internship with I think one of our Congress people, and I didn't get it. And they told me it had nothing to do with you. We loved you, but it didn't work out. And then there was something else, like I was going to do externship in DC. It didn't work out, and job opportunities in Houston. But when this opportunity came, I knew this was for me and what God had for me.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, I know you mentioned your mom and your father being amazing individuals who have served
Mhm.
Birmingham for so many years. And for me, like I think of my mom. My mom, before I accepted my call into ministry, my mother was licensed and ordained in the church. She was a preacher of the gospel, but it never clicked to me that I would follow her footsteps. I was like, "Oh, okay, mom. Like, thank you for inspiring me. I love you dearly. You do amazing work." But then God called me. So was it similar to you? Did you know that you will follow in the family footsteps, or did you just kind of stumble upon it and realize that God had this as part of your will?
Yeah, it was definitely the latter because if you know me all my life, I said I would never be an attorney, I would never be a politician, and I'm both. And I think having both parents in politics, I really saw the ups and the downs and really just kind of the negative part of politics. And so I didn't want to kind of deal with that. I just wanted to have just a simple life, just not being a politician. But when this opportunity came before me, it was just a way that it opened up, honestly, because a lot of times, when that opportunity is God made, when
Mhm.
everything aligns, like when the door is wide open, and that's what happened. So I prayed to God. I said, God, is this something that you want me to do? Just show me. And he did. And I've been uh, running forward and fast and with the race ever since, in the race ever since.
And when you say opportunity, for those who may not know, what I know what it is, but what opportunity are you referring to?
So I represent District 6, and that's the kind of like downtown on the western side of Birmingham. So the person who was in the Birmingham City Council seat before me, and she came after my mom, she ended up getting elected to the county commission. And so it was up for appointment. And so one of the city councilors came to my mom and said, "Hey, do you think either one of your daughters would be interested?" Of course, we both said no, but that opportunity came. I got appointed. It'll be 4 years in January. And
Wow.
then, yeah, and then we had to vote on a property tax for our schools in October 2019. So I ran and I won. And it's very rare that you hear somebody win without runoff with having five or more opponents.
Wow.
And then after I finished that term, I ran again a year ago. So August 2021, I won with over 60% of the vote.
Wow. Glory to God. That is
Mhm.
that is so amazing. And I know when you got that office, you were 25 years old. When I was 25 years old, child, I was in seminary, but I was still trying to figure my life out, right? I wasn't trying to lead a whole city. So I was so intrigued with your story as we talk about leading beyond boundaries, because you were, if not the youngest, one of the youngest to ever serve in this role. And so, how did you develop your confidence? Because there's people, they're probably the only woman, the only person of color, the only person from a particular area code, like whatever that only is, you can feel isolated. But how did you find the boldness to walk into this and to do it with confidence?
I think the first thing that I had to do was embrace that I was meant to be in the seat and that
Mm,
this is my job. And a lot of times I think we play down ourselves like, oh, I'm not qualified for this, or oh, this really isn't a job for me. But once I started to embrace, I am a city leader, the representative, and not only that, praying to God. I always found when I always try to pray before council meeting, and I can tell the difference in my confidence because when you're God led, you can't do wrong. And so I think that's what happens with a lot of politicians, whoever they serve, they aren't God led and they're led by money or by greed or by power. And you see them make certain decisions that
mm,
really don't reflect what is best for the people. And so I literally just pray to God, God, tell me what I need to say, tell me what I need to do, calm my anxiety down, let me know what decisions are best for your people. And ever
mhm.
since I prayed that prayer, my confidence has increased.
That's amazing, because I mean, to know who got you in the seat. Of course,
Hmm.
you vote, but God is guiding you.
Hmm.
And I know that's not always popular to be in a place and say, I am going to be led by my faith.
Hmm.
I am going to pray. Have you ever had opposition with being a prayerful leader?
No, I think that has to do with being in a majority black city. Mm-mm. It's
Mm-hmm.
actually people actually resonate, kind of connect with you more when you say that. Like when you say that, they definitely believe that you are genuine in what you do. Because a lot of times people can see um, the Holy Spirit and God radiating after you. Kind of like, whenever you're in a room with somebody, you can feel the vibe, but whether somebody's lying and they're just kind of like, oh, like, I love church, and someone who actually follows after God.
That is amazing. I mean, I know for me, there's days of intimidation. Like, okay, one day you can be completely confident, and the next day you're like, how did I get in this place, Lord?
Mhm.
You ever had a day like that where you're like, I don't know if I can, if I don't know if I can do this. Or how did you keep yourself from throwing in the towel, or silencing your voice? Because those moments happen, at least for me.
Yeah, I definitely think it's the hardest when I have to campaign because campaigning is always dirty, whether it's on the local level, state level, or national level. And so I don't care how tough you are, hearing somebody talk about you negatively to the point like my dad will always say, you at the end of this campaign, you probably think a tail was growing out of you, a devil's tail, the way they talk about you. And that was really hard. And hearing people sometimes constantly being like, oh, nothing's being done, the city isn't doing anything, and you're working hard. Like, I wake up thinking about what I can do for the district and the city, I go to sleep thinking about it. And so sometimes it can get really taxing on yourself. And so there have been times I'm just like, man, I'm so young, like I don't have to go through this, like
Yeah.
I can just be living my free life. But then I think about my why, and
Mm,
that to know that if someone else, like some of my opponents, if somebody else ran and I was in the race and they won, I know they wouldn't have the best interest for the district at heart, or I feel like the district would suffer. So I said,
mm,
until God tells me it's time to move on, I'm going to serve in this capacity and make sure that I uplift myself and uplift other people, and
mm.
also have a great support system as well that really uplifts me when I feel like that.
And I'm curious, because I know for me as a preacher, being in the spotlight has this added pressure. Like you feel like even when no one's watching, you feel like people are watching. You definitely, you're in the news, you're in the newspaper for amazing events that you're partnering with and initiatives that you're starting.
Mhm.
How do you handle the pressure of being watched and being judged? Um, because like you said, you're young and a lot of our generations like, yo, I don't have to deal with this, I'm out. And you're still there, you are in it, and you are in it for a great cause. But how do you handle the pressure of the mantle?
And I think that has something will always remember to humble yourself.
Mm,
I kind of look at it as if you're talking about like just the humility part, I'm just the average person, just like the person walking across the street or the person who picks up our garbage or even a doctor or even the president of the United States. We're all average people. The only difference is a title. That's how I kind of look at it as. And as far as like dealing with people's judgments, because I was 25 and like you were saying, you're still learning yourself, you're still immature. And so, I had to get to a point where I didn't manage my own social media for my own mental health because of
mm,
the things people were saying. But eventually I got to the point that it's almost like, dang if I do, dang if I don't, just kind of living my life, but also knowing to have that sense of privacy as well.
mhm,
Um, but also knowing to let people see myself. And I think that's the hardest part about it because if you really know me, you know I like to smile a lot and laugh
mhm,
a lot. So making sure I have a balance. There was one politician that asked me, and they were older than me, more experienced, like how did I ever feel like there was two sides of me? Because with them, they had one side, you saw the politician and then themselves. I said, no,
mm.
what you see is what you get. The only thing you see is I may be a little bit more professional and maybe a little bit more drawn back, but I'm still the same person. If you saw me in the grocery store with the bun on my head, or if you see me in the suit, or if you see me in a suit with heels, I'm still gonna act like
Right,
the same person. Yeah.
right. Whether my edges are late or not, I am the same person.
Yes. Yes.
You just what you're saying, people work their entire life to get there. And so I want you to understand the magnitude of what you're saying, that you are authentically you, right? And you are not censoring yourself
Hmm.
based upon a title or who you're in front of. And that's one thing that I am learning. I can't please everyone. I have to live my life. I have to discover myself. And so if I'm constantly trying to mask myself for other people who are going to have a good or bad opinion regardless,
Yeah.
then I have to choose to live for me. I have to choose to do things that make me excited. And so for you to say this, I pray that it's liberating someone else, because it matters and it's
Yeah.
sometimes hard.
Hmm.
It's sometimes hard. I can only speak for me, but it's sometimes hard. How did you get to that point? Or has that always just been who you are?
That hasn't always been who I am.
Give
Because
us the
I
secrets.
definitely think the two P's, like what you said, preachers and politicians, we definitely are monitored, even from,
Hmm.
there's nothing wrong with like drinking wine. We're of legal age, but if they see even drinking a glass of wine, some people frown upon that, even though that's perfectly normal. I think that just had to do with just growing up in age and just being very secure with myself.
Hmm.
That really just had to come with just time, honestly. Just getting to that point where, you know, it came with time and age. I think, and I thought about this the other day. If I had started off the city council at 29, I think I definitely would have approached things differently because what I had to do in essence, I had to grow up in front of the whole city. So what a lot of people were able to do behind closed doors, like, you know, learning how to speak confidently, how to run a public hearing, how to do news interviews where, and that's one of the hardest things when they throw you a hard question and
Ooh,
you know how
I
they
hate
do a
it.
hard question and you have to figure out how to answer it without um, making it seem like you're angry or you're like nervous. And so
Mm,
I kind of went through all of those phases, having to work with people who are significantly older than me and
Mhm.
represent people who are significantly older than me. But
Mhm.
I think I always said that I would work hard and that my hard work would speak for itself and that I would gain respect by people knowing that I was serious about the job, because that was another thing. People didn't think I was serious about it. They just thought like, oh, here comes another politician's kid. She's trying to just put on her resume, da da. And then when
Mhm.
they saw like, oh, she really cares about the district. Oh, she has events every month. Oh, she really is out here picking up paper, uh,
Mhm.
canvassing the area. So
Wow. Building your own legacy, which is so empowering. I have a lot of friends who are doctors or lawyers, and it's like a generational thing, and so I do believe in generational callings. You
yeah.
said something important, right? Learning to speak. Well, you've always been a wonderful speaker. Well, maybe learning to speak in front of the news with those questions.
Mhm.
A lot of women, we struggle with confidence or
Mhm.
imposter syndrome because we don't know
Yeah.
maybe all the points to a role, or we don't know how to run this brand new meeting.
Mhm.
Like, what encouragement can you provide someone that may be stopping their blessings, that may not be going after their dreams and their passions because they are going to have to learn, they're going to have to be vulnerable? Like what was something that you told yourself as you gained this knowledge and operated in this humility?
I definitely think saying affirmations every morning. This is something I started back. I don't know if people here have watched Mary Jane, where she had the sticky notes up of the different affirmations, whether it was like her bathroom or her door or her refrigerator door. I think having that as a reminder. There's something that it really works. What people say before you have to speak, you do the Superwoman or Superman pose. I think for like
Mm,
so much time to give yourself confidence. Um, I
that's good.
think that's it. And also taking courses if you can afford it, because sometimes your job will pay for it. Like Dale Carnegie is really, really good. They teach you
Mm,
how to have purposeful movement, for example, how to do your elevator pitch. And I
mm,
definitely think practicing in front of the mirror, but you just have to be, just know your worth. I think confidence, that's all it is about, just knowing your worth and knowing that you belong in that space and knowing that your product or your company or your organization can be the thing that can change somebody's life. You know,
yeah.
it's always, as long as you touch one person, that's all that matters. Because if you touch one person, then they'll go and they'll touch 10 other people, and those 10 other people will touch 100 people, and it goes on and on. And that whole cycle of change started from your one product, your one organization or mission touching that one person. So you
Mm.
have to keep that as your motivation.
Yes, riser. So if y'all are listening, just focus on the one thing, the one product, the one person you want to touch, the one life you want to impact. Because one of the most humbling things is I've been watching as I develop my preaching and my speaking, and I'm going to be a forever student of it. I like to go back to some of the people who I admire today.
Mhm.
How were they 10 years ago, right? Where were they 5 years ago? No one just arrived at this place. Everyone has a journey. And the thing that separates the novice to the great is because they don't give up and they continue to practice, they continue to show up. And so if you're listening and you're saying, man, like, I want to be a lawyer and I haven't even gone to school yet. Just put in an application, right?
Mhm.
Or I want to apply for this job. Just get the confidence to hit the submit button and allow God to do the rest. But yeah, like it's a journey. And people just continue to learn more and more as long as they don't give up and throw in a towel or become so intimidated not to move forward.
Yeah. I remember you had a conference, was it earlier this year? Maybe
Yeah,
in
January.
January, Igniting Your Fire. And I
Mhm.
think also go to her conferences. That was something that really ignited my fire to figure out what the next piece of my journey. Um, and really just also, I think a lot of what you taught us was making sure we wrote out a plan, and have a prayer to back that plan, and really just being able to do like just one task at a time.
Yeah.
Because I'm actually reading Atomic Habits, and they were saying that, I love it, and it was talking about your habits, and your habits are tied to your identity. So like if you want to lose weight, you kind of look at as what would a healthy person do instead of like, oh, I need to eat less.
Mhm.
And when you do that, that's more sustainable.
Yeah, the mindset as you're talking
Mhm,
about that, the mind is so powerful. And I'm
mhm.
actually in a program now to like reprogram the neural pathways in my mind, so that I can become bolder and more confident. Um, but the mental health piece is so key. That even goes back to your sticky notes and your affirmations. Like, um, are there any other practices that you can think of that really allows you to tear down these boundaries of leadership?
Yes, the practices are being able to own your space.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because a lot of times as women, and I saw this, like when I would have even a small, maybe just three of us, when two men would talk and be myself, sometimes they would talk over me or ignore me, but making sure, because you can interrupt and make your point without being angry or being overly aggressive or being rude. Just always remember you have a say in where you are. Like you are just as worthy and you're just as qualified as that man or as that older individual. Um, Another thing, just because people have been doing certain processes and things a certain way doesn't mean it's always the right way or it can't be done better. So leading without boundaries, if you see a certain way that can affect a change, you get prepared, you have a plan, you try to figure out what questions people would ask or what things people would say as the negative, and then have an argument to back it up. If they
Mm-hmm.
say, oh, it won't work because it'll cost too much money or we'll lose money, then you come back and say, no, it's actually very cost effective in the long run. And so when you have that and when you're prepared with your questions
Mm-hmm.
and just having people who believe in you, because when you believe in yourself and you believe in your product, then that allows other people to take you seriously and have confidence in you, because there
Wow.
have been plenty of things I've done that, were things people had never done before end up being a
Mm.
success. Like something small, like doing a farmer's market in my district.
Wow.
That was something that had never been done, especially in a black neighborhood. So there
Mm.
were a lot of things like, oh, like, they won't come, or, there won't be a lot of farmers just because, they may not want to go to black neighborhoods. And I was like, no, let's have it. We'll never know who we were able to impact. And so the first time it was kind of slow. The second time it kind of was a little slow. Then it started to pick up a little bit. And then I kind of got discouraged. I was like, well, maybe they were right. But I had my next one and it was better than ever before. People were asking, when's the next one? People were calling me like, when's the next farmers market? Dang, hey, I missed it. So so that's what I mean by something like you just have to have confidence in it. And if you fail, just reevaluate it and see what you can do better. But not putting yourself in a box, because when you put yourself in the box, you really limit your talents and your gifts when you do that.
And what I'm hearing is that you were unafraid to leave your own legacy
Mhm.
and to build and forge your own paths. Your father, your mother being in politics already, but you've done things that has not been done. So where did this creativity come from? Where did the what does the idea phase look like for you? Because you're doing a lot. I'm like, I don't even know how you're sitting here with me, but I'm honored and I'm grateful. What is like, do you sit down? Do you go to a coffee shop? Is it a team of people? How do you keep the freshness coming?
So, and you're my friend, of course I'm gonna do it. But it's so crazy. My mom has said that she was just like, these ideas just come out of nowhere. Honestly, I'm not just saying this. I really think it's God, because
Mm,
literally, like, an idea will drop in my mind. I say, oh, we need to do this, or
mm,
oh, this is a good idea, and then I'll be able to, I'll write it down, and then I'll have a team meeting and say, hey guys, this is like the skeleton of what I want to see done. Let's get it
mhm,
done. And usually, most of the times, it's a really success. And I usually make sure that we go hard. So I said, we're going to do everything possible, marketing, putting flyers out on the radio, TV, because this event will not fail because we weren't prepared or we didn't give our all. But honestly,
mhm,
Christian, it's really just God coming out. And I actually found out I had a gift for, I like doing events. I like event planning. I like putting events together. And
mhm.
that's another thing without boundaries. I never would have known that if I hadn't accepted. this position, but and sometimes I just get in like a quiet place. And then sometimes I know people like to go out on the weekends, but sometimes Sundays are my best days. I'll put some music in or I'll go take a walk with Charlie and I kind of think about or just kind of evaluate myself monthly. What does the district need? Do I need to call somebody to see where are the gaps in between? How can I how is this able to move my district forward? What is something innovative that nobody else is doing, but can address some of the issues like food insecurity or transportation or job development?
Mm. And that goes back to understanding your vision and your why, because no matter how busy you are, you make time for that replenishing moment. And that goes back to being that God-fearing leader that you were mentioning earlier. Because I reached a point in my life where God said, "Don't attend another conference. You don't need to watch another video. You need to get in my presence. You need to pray to me. I have the strategy. I have your next steps." And so that's exactly what you do, and that's how you gain the clarity. But faith without works is dead. So then you get up from that place and you make it happen.
Yes, yes. So yeah, I definitely think that, but just some things people can do.
Hmm.
I guess you have to know yourself, know your environment. So, for example, sometimes I actually need to be in a noisy place to actually hone in on my work. Like when I used to have to have the TV on or music in because my mind would start wandering. So that
Wow.
may look like, and really need to be organized. Have an organizer, have a planner, plan out your day, have intentional goals daily, weekly, and monthly. I think that'll help you out. So schedule
Mm,
that throughout the day. It may look like maybe you wake up, pray, read the Bible, work out, and then right before you go to work, you list out your goals and kind of think about what projects you need to do. Or it could be the end of the day, and maybe you go to a coffee shop, or maybe you sit in the park and you think about your ideas and just work on a little bit every day. Well, it's 30 minutes. 30 minutes, I'm going to think about this topic that I want to develop and just kind of think about it, think about really start with the end and then go backwards. I think that's helpful. So, for example, if I want to do a recycling initiative, so when the mayor and I did the pilot program, citywide pilot program, the
mhm,
recycling initiative was okay, getting cans out to people and educating people about recycling. Then you go backwards. What would that look like? How many neighborhoods would we affect? What kind of educational material are we giving to people? So I think having the end in mind and seeing the big picture and zooming back in is really helpful.
and the key that you also mentioned was like you brought in the mayor, right? So who can you bring in for accountability? Because sometimes we'll have an idea and it just doesn't go forth, but bringing in the right people, you
Mhm.
don't have to do everything, y'all. So if you're listening and you have this idea or you feel called in a particular area, who in your tribe can you lean on? Who can you outsource? Who can pray for you? Who can work on your team? Who can volunteer? These
Mhm.
are things because God does not call us to be in community alone. He calls us to work in collaboration, and that's what I see you doing often, Crystal. Um, so I know that with politicians, there's this phrase of shaking hands and kissing babies. I just love it. Shaking hands, kissing babies. But you are really with the people.
Mhm.
How do you nurture relationships, because you see so many people every day, you're talking to people, you're meeting with people, like what is the art of building strong relationships as you lead?
Really, we're in the service business, and the mayor says that all the time. I think of it as a customer service process. And so it's really about thinking, I kind of put myself in other person's shoes, that if I was a resident talking to a city council person, how would I want them to communicate to me? How would I want them to tell me my complaint is has this status? And another beautiful thing is I grew up in this district. So a lot of people saw me grow up, and so I have a really connection with a lot of people because these are the same people who, would babysit me when my mom was at an event or my dad was at an event, or saw me reading a book at the library, or who may give me $1 or $2 at church when I had good grades. And so I
Mhm.
think having that connection and just being genuine, really, and showing people that you actually care. Um, Making sure that you're still present, that people still see you, that you pick up the phone. Because what happens a lot of times, politicians, they'll be all in the neighborhood. You see, it's all in the neighborhood, like all for you. You get calls from them, and then as soon as the election is over, you don't hear from them for another 3.5 years when it's time to run again. But I
Mhm.
think by constantly just staying in the neighborhoods, always having events, showing your face, and doing little things for people, whether it's going to somebody's house and sitting down with them and having tea and
Mhm.
some cake with them, or going to somebody's 90th birthday party, or even just going to even a fun day and just bringing out hamburgers and hot dogs. So really just making sure that people, like I said at the beginning, that you're literally just another person. You're just one of them. You are their neighbors. My campaign slogan was neighbor helping neighbors, neighbors helping neighbors, because I am your neighbor and all I'm doing is helping you in a different capacity.
Wow. Yeah, being amongst the people is so important, and that is one thing that I know is adding to your legacy and what people most admire about you. Now, I know, being young, you got to let your hair down, okay? You got to let your hair down. You have to have those safe spaces. How have you navigated that? How have you navigated? I know that you are being authentic in public and with everyone, but how do you navigate the privacy of being Crystal, not the politician, but Crystal, the young woman? How have you like really made way in that area, or do you struggle with it?
It's gotten better. I think I'm very blessed to have good friends, and that's something I've always struggled with just my whole life. Is finding out who was my friend and who wasn't. And
Mhm.
because being part of a political family, I easily am able to see that maybe a lot quicker than other people. And so having genuine people around, having good friends, and go on vacations. I love to go on vacation where I don't have to worry about being Councilor Smitherman or Attorney Smitherman. I can be Crystal, being very strategic in where I go out. And you can have different forms of fun that don't involve drinking and partying, whether it's going and hanging out with my friends and having dinner,
Yeah.
or me and somebody at the park and going to event, hanging out with my family. I definitely think that I try to do at least one self care thing a day, and that helps in my mental capacity as well. So making sure now it's starting back to be working out. So that helps me to be me. Also knowing my limits socially. So
Mhm.
a lot of people, I don't know, I guess it's a way to be an introvert, but I really am an extra introvert. Like my test really said that. It was crazy in college. I was more introverted than extroverted, but I was still both. So knowing when my social battery is low, not forcing myself to stay out. I mean, like as Crystal, not forcing myself to stay out because people expect me to, and it may look lame or whatever, but I also know, like,
That's powerful.
not stretching myself too thin. I think a lot of professionals do that. You see them trying to work out and eat healthy, drink water, go party, and have a social life, go to
Mhm.
conferences, events. But my dad always say you can only do two and a half things. And so just making sure that you just have that balance. Like some weekends you can't go out, you have to stay and work. But you also have to understand, like, if it's a light week, go have fun. Like, go out with your friends, whatever your form of fun is. So,
So important. So
so
important. Don't try to do it all.
mhm,
And with those busy seasons, like you said, you won't be probably won't be able to do as much as you desire socially, but
mhm,
rest. And when you can go on vacation, and I'm assuming you probably, plan it out when you can. Um,
mhm,
honor that. But I know that with those many hats, you also have your firm alongside with your father. How do you manage to do that as well?
that's I'm gonna be honest. That's hard because sometimes it can go at the. Oh, sorry, Christian. Let me mute that. Give me 1 second. Sorry, I'm gonna mute that. That was actually my staff person that called me. Let's see, personal.
Busy lady.
Do not disturb. Okay. Okay. I got to do not disturb. I'm sorry. But how do I do it? So sometimes it can be hard with having a law firm too, because sometimes the two jobs will demand my attention at the same time. But really being organized, that's how I do it.
Mm,
Really being organized and knowing what I can do and what I can't do. I think that some professionals need to know, like, kind of prioritize your work. And that's what I kind of do. Like, what is something I immediately need to do right now that needs to be addressed today and
yeah.
that will have an effect on somebody's life, whether it's mine or another person's tomorrow? I do it. If there's an email that I see that I need to respond to immediately, I will. But if there's like an email or assignment that can honestly kind of wait, that
Mhm.
doesn't have a time restraint, I'll push it to the weekend, for example, or Sundays. So really making sure I prioritize the assignments I have and what I need to do, and also knowing when I need to put down the city council hat. So, like, if I have a trial coming up, city council isn't a priority. Not saying I don't do my work, but I'll read the agenda, I'll do my work, I'll go to meetings. But as far as doing events and stuff, I don't schedule anything leading up to that trial. So,
Mm,
really, like I said, it's being organized. I
wow.
think that's the biggest thing people have to learn. You just have to be organized. You have to be go about schedule. And the book I was talking about, they were saying a lot of people feel like when you have a routine, you lose freedom because they feel like life becomes too rigid. But in fact, you have freedom, more freedom, because
Mm-hmm.
they were saying, for example, when you have financial structure, a good financial habits, you're able to go on the vacation and not worry about, the debt that, yeah, I know you and Matt have done a great job with that. Or you don't have to worry about if you go out to eat with your family, like, oh,
Yeah.
man, let me check to make sure I have enough money in my account. Or,
You my toes
yes.
because for the longest, I'm like, I get bored with routine.
Mhm,
Like, it's just I
mhm,
get bored with routine, and so I'm like, I don't want a planner. I don't want to do the same thing every day.
mhm,
And it took 3 years of Matt saying, "Hey, Christian, like you need routine in your life." And
mhm,
I'm now seeing how I am now able to have a greater capacity, or I'm able to work with more intentionality in a short period
mhm,
because I know what's going on.
mhm.
So that routine piece is so important. I do, wow, I can't believe we're almost at 40 minutes, but I do want to touch on this topic here. Um, for a person that is leading without boundaries, legacy is so important. Like everyone wants to leave legacy, whether it's money, whether it's, non-monetary.
Mm,
How do you intentionally channel in your legacy every day, right? Because I know, city council, it can be a short tenure or it could be a long tenure, but nonetheless, you want to make sure your fingerprints are left behind. So whether that's a woman listening with her family, legacy, whether that's a CEO, how are you intentionally tapping into the legacy you want to leave?
tapping tapping into it is really intentionality. What we've been talking this whole time, being intentional about what initiatives I want to do. So making sure that, and first you have to identify what do you want your legacy to be. So at the beginning, I said my legacy, it won't look like my mom. It won't look like my dad. I have to acknowledge that it'll look like my own. It'll look like a mixture. What do I want to be left with? What do I want to leave behind? And
Mm,
my legacy, just in a broad statement, that she cared about the district and she left it better than what she found. That is literally just the broad statement. Because when you have a broad statement like that, everything else falls into
that's
place.
good. That's good. What is the vision for your life? I'm just thinking about that. For those, what is the vision for your life? What is the vision, listeners, that you have for your family? What is the vision you have for your job, that book, that business, that nonprofit, that ministry? And I think knowing that one statement can identify so many steps that has to
Mhm.
happen. So that is so key. Wow, well, we are at the end of our time. And two things, I want you to share your social. How can they stay connected to you and support the events that you're having? And then the second thing is, how can you encourage the listeners to rise above boundaries? So social media and rising above boundaries.
Yeah, so my council social media is at Councilor Crystal, Crystal Smitherman, Smitherman.
Mhm.
And then you can just put Councilor Crystal Smitherman on the Facebook page. We also have a website, www.d6bham.com, for
Mhm.
upcoming events. If you want to submit an event, read my bio, see what neighborhoods I represent, for that information. But the last piece of advice I will have to say is really remembering that God will not fail you. That's
Wow.
how you lead without boundaries.
Wow.
Um, and really that God has a plan for you. So really one some of my favorite verses was, if God is for me, then man can't be against me. Or that
Oh,
God will never leave nor forsake nor fail me. And to know that you're not by yourself. And
wow.
even when you feel like you are, you're never, God is always with you. I have a little block in my kitchen that says, I am not alone.
Wow.
And when you remember that God is behind you and that God is pushing you, and when you put yourself in a space and a posture to hear God's voice over all others, then you will have the confidence to know that, okay, God is with me. I don't need anybody else. Like, let's go for it and let's do it.
That is so amazing, risers. So if you are listening, you can do it. God is with you. Do not let your age, race, sex, gender, any of that. Do not let that be a hindrance to fulfilling your mission. Crystal, I am so honored that we are sisters. And I'm just so grateful for all that you're doing in the Birmingham city. So risers, to those who are listening, to those who are watching, continue to rise. The world is waiting. And until next time, I'll see ya. Thanks, Crystal.
Hi, guys.
Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Rising with Christian podcast. There is someone you know who could be blessed by this episode, so share it with a friend, be a blessing, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. All right, guys, have a wonderful week, and don't forget to rise today because your future is now.